Welcome to A Magical Life, Health, Wealth and Weight Loss. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, lead practitioner at Holistic Natural Health Australia and #1 best-selling author. In this podcast, I aim to give you practical tips on how to accelerate and sustain your health, increase your financial, spiritual and emotional wealth, and to look at something that haunts many of us needlessly, weight loss. In some episodes, I'll have guests available to give you even more tips, but in others, the floor is yours. Drop us a line at A Magical Life Podcast on Facebook and let me know what you would like to know more about. Now, sit back and enjoy, because it is time for you to create and truly discover a magical life. Welcome back to A Magical Life. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, and this is episode 34, and I'm joined by Kim Townsend. Kim is passionate about supporting people to find joy and fulfillment in life through wholehearted living. This means to live an authentic life, letting go of who you think you are supposed to be and embracing who you really are. The key to this is not taking life too seriously and to practice self-care, being mind, body and spirit, and building resilience by letting go of drama, chaos and stress. Trained in neuro-linguistic programming, results coaching, holistic counselling, creative arts therapy and meditation, Kim understands the science behind human behaviour and has a suite of tools to initiate and navigate change. She is also a trained facilitator of Dr. Brené Brown's methods, has a Cert 4 in Fine Arts and loves to infuse creativity and play into her work. Career-wise, Kim did not follow a conventional path, but took a flexible and adventurous approach she describes as lifestyle and next shiny object. We'll have to ask her about that. She acquired numerous skills across many industries, including general nursing and aged care, hospitality, sales, drug and alcohol rehab, the education department, personal development and events, just to name a few. This resulted in highly developed skills in the art of navigating, managing and creating change, as well as finding calm within chaos. This journey, what she prefers to call a magical mystery tour, and skills combined with life experiences, equips her to connect with authenticity, compassion and empathy. She loves adventure travel and is a resilient mother of 3, grandmother of 3, and walks her talk. Welcome, Kim.
Well, thank you. I wonder who wrote that. My goodness, it sounds awesome.
It is. Tell me about shiny object syndrome, because I'm sure that a lot of listeners have it. I know I have it. Can you explain to the listeners what it is?
Yeah, so I suppose when I look back at my life, you could look at it two ways. I suppose I was never really taught to have goals. So what I was doing, I now sort of also think it was about following my intuition. So when I had a job that was really feeling unfulfilled or I couldn't see a path forward, and somebody would come and say, oh, you want to try this? I'd go, oh, yeah, that looks good. And I'd be off and try something else. So when I left school, it wasn't that, yes, I'm going to be a nurse, I'm going to be this or that. It was like, oh, I don't know what I want to do. And I sort of fell into nursing. And then when that wasn't sort of suiting me, I bought a camper van and took off. And that continued for a long time. So I've accumulated well over 50 different jobs over the years in all sorts of different industries.
Wow. Yeah, you are a very interesting lady. Now, Kim, what can your expertise do to accelerate health, be it emotional, spiritual or physical?
Yeah, so what I have discovered with all the training that I've done is that, I mean, everybody's just living with so much fear. We're not born with this fear. It's a learned behaviour. And it's really about unlearning the behaviour, which comes back to being self-aware and identifying, what feels uncomfortable and then taking responsibility to do something about it. And with that responsibility also comes in the self-care, where you make sure that you're feeding your body what it really needs. So underlying it all, it really just comes down to stress and learning about stress and how to manage, reduce, and then prevent it. And within that too, building up resilience so that when challenges come, you look at them as opportunities, not like, oh, why me? Why is this happening to me?
Is that like seeing the silver lining in something?
That's a part of it. That is definitely a good first step. But yeah, you can see the silver lining, but then it's a matter of doing something so that that silver lining means something and you're working with it rather than just putting on your rose-coloured glasses.
Right. Now, what can constant stress do to chip away at health? I know we were just talking offline about an experience I had, and I'll share it with the listeners now. When I was very young, there was someone close to me in the family that every time I said something or did something, they would say, "Don't be silly." And that added up. The incremental stress of that made me feel not heard, not seen, and really unimportant. And recently, in a conversation with this person who's still in my life, I actually found myself saying it back to them. I only did it once and caught myself. How would something with that incremental dismissal affect someone's health later on and life later on?
For me, I had a similar thing, but mine was bloody hopeless. So what happens it's called the imprint period from the age of 0 to 7. Kids' minds are just like a sponge. You haven't learnt what society is saying is right from wrong, good from bad. So just take on everything. One of the distinct things is the difference between shame and guilt. So in your situation, it was don't be silly, and it was saying about your behaviours being silly. But as a kid, we take it on as being a part of us. So the kid ends up going, oh, I am silly, not what I am doing is silly. The difference between shame and guilt is that guilt is about the action, shame becomes about the person. So when, as a child, you're told, don't be silly, you don't understand the distinction. So you go, oh, I am silly. And that is, that belief permeates through the rest of your life, because if your primary caregivers who are supposed to love you are telling you you're silly, you're going to believe it. And the words that concern me is when something happens and a kid tells the parent the story about what happened and they go, oh, I don't care about the story. The kid ends up thinking they don't care about me. And that creates a whole other dimension of stress.
Totally. And then that stress can make all sorts of health changes, which we've spoken about before on the podcast, but it can charge your adrenals. You can be changing your hormone pathways because of that stress. It breaks down the collagen in your body. Like there's so many things that stress can do. And of course, it can make us lose or gain weight.
Absolutely.
What are your top 3 tips, Kim, to creating wealth? Now, when we're talking about wealth, we're talking personal, financial, and emotional.
As I mentioned before, the self-care, self-responsibility, and self-awareness, and getting support. So on this planet, we can't do things alone. I know we like to go, yeah, I'm independent and I'm strong to be independent, but it just isolates you. And we need to be connected to others and collaborate. So there's also the communication, collaboration, and the connection. And within all of that, it is just understanding how to drive our bodies and our minds. I like to use the analogy of a car. For some reason, when we're born, we're not actually taught how to drive our bodies, to understand our bodies and how to work them so that they work for us and how to maximize their potential. We're just gradually told what we can't do. We can't do this, you can't do that. We take on the fears of our parents or the church or whoever are our main influences. But the thing is for us to learn how to listen to our own heart and be brave to do what lights us up. So it's about daring to be vulnerable, having the courage to be vulnerable, and to let go of everybody else's beliefs and do what we want to do for ourselves.
That's great. So you mentioned self-awareness.
Yes.
Can you explain that for the listeners?
So a lot of the times, I believe, we're just on automatic. We don't actually stop and think, okay, what's happening in my body? How come I'm behaving like that? Why am I getting nervous in this situation? So once you bring awareness to a problem or a discomfort, that's the first step to being able to make some changes. And what we tend to do is just ignore it and push it aside. For a lot of people, any discomfort, it might be either getting prescribed medication or drugs or alcohol, eating too much or near the not eating. And it becomes an addictive behaviour, which doesn't serve us.
And so you've covered there the mind, the body, and the spirit,
Yeah.
just in talking addictive behaviours there. And often we really ignore the impact the spirit has on our behaviours. What we follow as true knowledge or inner knowing can often be influenced by us not being self-aware.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Now tell me a bit more about self-responsibility.
Okay, with self-responsibility, ultimately, if we don't look after ourselves, who will? I think in Australia, we're really lucky. We've got such a good healthcare system. We've got the Centrelink and the financial support. But the thing is that too many people have decided that they are there and, it's taken for granted. So then they don't look after themselves. And when things go wrong, they blame, the system or other people. But we're the only ones who can change ourselves. And we are totally responsible for ourselves and our own well-being. So, step up and look after yourself.
Now, off air, you were saying about investing in yourself, in your mind, body, and spirit. I found that quite interesting because when I offer people programs, they seem really shocked that they have to pay for health consultations and health advice. You mentioned Centrelink and Medicare. I think people in Australia are just so used to seeing a doctor and Medicare pick up the tab, and they don't even seem to realise that if they're not getting answers, it's because you get what you pay for. And what I've seen is this lack of self-responsibility, the lack of willingness to pay for service to get the answers that you need. It's almost like they're punishing themselves and want to stay somewhat unhealthy or are just immobilized with fear to invest in themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is that I suppose it's a paradigm that the Western world has created, and dare I say it, the reliance on pharmaceuticals, when we've got our own natural pharmacy inside if we learn to understand the symptoms or understand the signs. So whenever you've got a discomfort, it's your body barometer saying, hey, pay some attention to this part of you. Otherwise, you're going to pay with some sort of pain. And that could be emotional, physical, or financial pain.
Totally. And in holistic natural health, the business that I work with, we often talk about whispers. The body sends whispers. And if you don't listen to the whispers, it has to start screaming at you. And that's when chronic ill health happens.
Absolutely. And using the analogy of a car, if your car starts squeaking or making noises, you go and get it fixed, because if you don't, it becomes a big financial problem. It means that you can't get anywhere. And so essentially, we often look after our cars better than we look after our bodies. And if you don't look after the driver, nobody goes anywhere.
Exactly. Now, the other tip there was self-care. So can you explain that for the listeners?
Okay. Often we're so busy looking after other people, and that's, family and friends, or, kids and parents, which is very, very important. But the majority of our time tends to go to, building somebody else's dream whilst working. And the thing is that when life gets so busy, because you hear everybody saying, I'm too busy to do that, I'm too busy to do this, the first thing that goes is our self-care. We start staying up later, getting up earlier, we skip meals, we don't exercise. And we need to do all of those things to keep our bodies fit and healthy to be able to do everything that we want. So we neglect ourselves before we neglect anybody else or anything else. But if we don't look after ourselves, nobody goes anywhere.
So you're really talking there about nourishing and nurturing yourself.
Absolutely. So that's, whatever you put into your mind and to your body is nourishing. So that's your food, the drink, what you watch on television, who you associate with. Are your friends actually, are they supporting you, or are they putting you down? Yeah, the activities you do. If you love to do art or bushwalk, how often are you doing that? Those things are self-nurturing and just so important to fill your cup so that you have the energy to be able to do everything else that you want to do.
So true. In my blogs, I often talk about community and how important community is. And, if you don't have that support system, if you have the friends, in inverted commas, that don't support you but tear you down, then you need to build your own community. You need to build even a group of 4 or 5 people that are there for you, that don't care what you do, what you're about, what you have done, but are there to support you day to day and you to support them. And that community is something that we're sadly lacking these days.
Absolutely, totally agree. With the opening up of the world and the travel, and it's harder to find people that you have things in common with. I remember one of my kids in year 1 had a birthday party, and he was the only Aussie out of a dozen kids who came in to the party, and great cultural diversity. But it made me realise that inside a classroom these days, there's so many variations of backgrounds and activities that kids can do outside of school. The common thread is very thin. And I used to say that the only thing they had in common was gender, and even now that's even questionable.
Yes, you're very right there. And when it comes to raising our children or our grandchildren, we've lost that village that it does take to raise the child. We've become dependent on childcare or on, dare I say it, the latchkey issue, and we're not surrounding our children with our elders because we may live in a completely separate town or even separate country. So we're not, from a young age now, giving our children the opportunity to be immersed in a community.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, intergenerational connectedness is something that's really important to me as well, because that's part of the life cycle, that we understand all of that. My grandparents had a great influence on me when I was a kid, because my parents were only teenagers when I was born, and I spent a lot of time with my grandparents, and I actually knew 4 great-grandparents. So there's generally been 5 generations in my family.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Which is pretty special. And a little while ago, I realised that a lot of my core values actually came from my grandparents, because they were quite entrepreneurial. They were very community minded. They loved having, fun, and they were very generous.
Isn't that funny? My Nana and Papa were my greatest influences in life. And something my Nana taught me was, she was very old school, so much of a lady.
Mm-hmm.
But you could see this lady that got glammed up to go out, dripping with her gold and, in her gorgeous dress. But when we were around, she was just Nana. And she had that switch that, she could switch on and off. But no matter which version of her she was always wise and caring. And, if I fell, she wouldn't pick me up and go, "Oh, darling," and fuss over me. She'd say, "What did you learn from that?"
Wow, that is wise. That's awesome.
Yeah, and it was almost for me to say at the age of 3 I was running down the hill too fast. Like I had to come up with the answer because she wanted me to think about it.
Yeah.
And my papa he was quite a character. He was a compounding pharmacist back in the day, but also loved photography. But he loved history and he loved talking about things. And we'd get together for, an extended family meal. And he would just go on about the most bizarre things and didn't mind. Like, he knew that he was the patriarch of the family and that we were all listening and had to kind of, fit in with his conversation. And what he taught me was walk to your own beat, and it doesn't matter. And just follow your dream and then follow your passions outside your dream and walk to your own beat.
Such wise words. And in the old community, in the tribal spaces, that was it. The mentoring came down from the stories of the elders. Whereas now, as you're saying, back to the kids going to childcare, the parents are so busy they outsource their parenting and then wonder why the kids have different values or see things in a different way. And they're too busy working, building somebody else's dream and giving their life and energy away to somebody else that they don't put their life into nurturing their children.
So true. And both of my kids have been raised to do what you love.
Mm-hmm.
And, they're following pathways that stimulate their minds and their souls. And they couldn't possibly think about going and getting a job that they just go to exist at. And my younger son talks now about being a dad. He can't wait to be a dad. And community message, if he listens to this, you can wait, please. But anyway, he talks about being a dad in the future and how he wants to be connected and grounded. And I asked him the other day, why is that? And he said, well, I didn't get it from my dad, but I got it from you. And I want my kids to be my best friends when they're my age. And I went, wow, that's really cool. I think he just said I'm his best friend.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Well done, Magic.
Thanks, Kim. Now, on the podcast here, we talk about weight loss. It's something that everyone battles, often needlessly. And we know that a major trigger for weight issues is stress. What can you say about that?
Part of it is that the mechanics of stress, when your body goes into stress, your digestive system shuts down because your body is preparing to be able to fight or run and protect yourself. So it shuts down the non-essential functions at the time. So if your body is constantly in stress, then your gut is not working properly. So for some people, they will either, when they're in discomfort, eat, the comfort eating, which a lot of people are familiar with, or you're too nervous to eat. So then, you're not getting the nourishment that you need. So the thing is to learn what is making you, what's behind the eating or the not eating, and learn to, solve that and get it out of your system. And that becomes, the mindfulness or the self-awareness that's first, why am I eating? Am I eating because I'm hungry? Or I'm eating because I'm bored or frustrated or whatever it is.
So you're getting at emotional eating there. The key behind emotional eating is it can often be an addiction, not only to the food, but to the replacement of the emotion.
Yes.
What can you say about addiction?
Okay, addiction, the latest research, if you see Johann Hari or Gabor Mate, is that addiction isn't about the substance, it's about lack of connection. So we are wired for connection, and when we have disconnection from others, we do things to alleviate that discomfort. And it's about stimulation as well. So there was an experiment called Rat Park, where rats were put into a maze where there was a water dripper with just straight water, and then water laced with cocaine. And at first they started going for the cocaine thing, but when they put other rats in the park and things for them to play with, in the end they didn't care for it because they were stimulated. They were connected. So people just see addictions as the illicit drugs or alcohol or cigarettes, but, we're addicted to stress because it's actually a silent, insidious epidemic, and it's like a slow suicide. But everybody just, pushes it away.
And the chemical reactions that stress triggers in the body are poisoning you. So when you say it's a slow suicide, definitely on a chemical level within the body, it is, because you're shutting down hormone pathways, brain function pathways, you're building up toxins within the body, and that can start from as little as saying something like, I'm fat, right up to something like, the world is overwhelming me and I can't go on. And, it's all, everything that you say is backed up by a chemical reaction within your body, which is possibly killing you.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, everything's energy. When I heard this sort of information, everything's energy, it's like, what are you talking about? But it is. And, words have energy. Feelings have energy. Your feelings have energy that, impact me. And, one of the things somebody was telling me the other day, just the whole good girl, good boy thing as a kid, when they've done something well, it's implanting a thing that they need to be good boys and good girls. And then, what does that mean? Rather than saying, well done. It makes a whole load of difference. And it's all that chemical stuff.
Totally. Now, what was your trigger to kick your habit?
So when I was 20, so in my early 20s, due to sort of feeling like I didn't belong anywhere, I was a shy, capable, confident appearing, quite achiever on the outside, but on the inside, I felt a whole lot of not good enough in a lot of different areas. In my early 20s, started dabbling in drugs. By the time I was 26, had a full-blown heroin addiction. And at the time, my partner was actually looking at possibly doing time for, I don't even know what crime he did. So we decided to go into a long-term residential drug and alcohol rehabilitation program with our 5-month-old daughter. During that process, for me, it was like it was a relief because I didn't belong in that space, but I didn't know who to turn to ask for support. And I stuck the whole program out and graduated, whereas he took off, and I think he's only been clean for 4 years, whereas for me it's been over 30. So part of it was just my awareness that I knew that wasn't the path for me, and also I wanted to give my daughter a life, not with a junkie mother.
Wow, that's very powerful. And what drove you to really kick the physical addiction?
The physical addiction, as I said, never felt like it was me anyway, but I just didn't know who to turn to. Ended up just going into the rehab. So the rehab sorted out the physical addiction. There was things there that was to work on the emotional side, but at the time, I didn't really get it. I suppose I'd been emotionally shut down as a kid because, if I got too excited, it's like, don't get too excited. If I got upset, what are you crying for? So I'd gradually shut down, the feeling side of me and was quite numb. So it's been a gradual process of reconnecting with the emotional side and what I call my emotional resilience.
That's very powerful, that resilience. I think we all have it within us, but many people don't see that they have that power. And if there's something that the listeners can take from today, I would like to say you have that resilience, you have that power within you. And whether it's your weight that you're battling, or whether it's illicit substances or feeling of disconnection, you have the power to do something about it. And don't let other people tell you that you can't.
The way I see resilience, a lot of people say, yeah, I'm resilient, I fall down, I brush myself off, I get back up. But I see that as the mental resilience and the physical resilience. They don't take into account the emotional resilience. What I like to say is that what we need to do when we fall down is to pause, become present, and then we pivot. So instead of just brushing ourselves off, picking up the pieces, getting back on the same horse, as they say, and going down the same path, we pause and look at the situation and go, okay, well, what wasn't working here for us to fall? So you come into presence, into the now. What is actually happening here? And then you go, I don't need all those pieces that I'm trying to carry. That's the wrong horse. That's the wrong path. And then we pivot. And it's about that. And rather than just pushing through, sucking it up and pushing on, it's about, that whole self-awareness. What's going on here? Taking that self-responsibility. What will I do differently for next time? And then the self-care is the sort of like the prevention. How can I avoid that or make sure that doesn't happen again? So, and that emotional resilience is like the glue that holds everything together, but it's also the lubrication to be able to keep us in flow and connected and moving forward.
So true. Now, Kim, here at A Magical Life, we love to give freebies to our listeners. What can you offer the folks out there?
Oh, what I'd love to do is, if any of this has resonated with you and you want some support to be able to move forward, as you've heard, my life has been quite colourful. So, no judgment from here because we are all on our own journey, or actually I call it a magical mystery tour because journey to me sounds a little bit tedious, but a magic mystery tour is loads more fun. Yeah, if you'd like to get in touch with me, 45-minute stressless consultation valued at $85. I'd love to have a chat with you and see how I can help you to make some changes. It only needs to be little changes to make a big impact on your life and the life of others around you.
That's fantastic. Now, listeners, you can get in touch with Kim at facebook.com/Kim, KIM.Townsend, TOWNSEND.735. Or Kim, you also have a meetup.
It's called Wholehearted Living, Mind, Body, Spirit and Adventure. And the idea, I haven't got it happening too much just at the moment, but the idea is to have either online events or once we can do more face-to-face stuff, events where you meet with like-minded people, have elevated conversations, maybe do some meditation, go bushwalking. But yeah, just collect people who are in this space, who want to make a difference with themselves and within life and society.
That's fantastic. So that's building that community, which we come back to time and time again. Thank you so much, Kim, for joining me today on A Magical Life.
My pleasure. It was fun.
It was. Now, if we have just maybe one parting pearl of wisdom for the listeners, what would it be?
What I love to say is life is a dance between vulnerability and courage. Dare to dance.
I love that. Listeners, get your dancing shoes on. Now, this was episode 34. In episode 35, we have the fabulous Dr. Perry Nicholson from Stop Chasing Pain, and he'll be talking all things lymphatic mojo. And I am blessed to say he is one of my mentors, and my goodness, that's going to be a long episode. I may even split it into two, because I will warn you, listeners, once Dr. Perry starts talking, you really get hooked and we can't stop him. So that's coming up in episode 35 of A Magical Life. Thank you, Kim, for joining me today. And for now, listeners, go forth and create your magical life.
Thanks for listening today. Please subscribe to hear future episodes, leave a review, and share this podcast. You can follow us on Facebook at A Magical Life Podcast or at Holistic Natural Health Australia. That's holistic with a W. You can find us on Instagram at Holistic Natural Health or at www.holisticnaturalhealth.com.au. That's where you'll access all sorts of articles, freebies, and more.